Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mindful Metal Jacket. I am Joe List. I am grateful you are here or there listening. I'm glad you're here on Earth, alive, breathing. We're alive today. Someday we will be dead. Right now we're not. That's cause for celebration. Take a moment, think about all your loved ones who someday will perish, and then take a moment to be grateful that they're all here and alive. Maybe call one of them, email them, text them. Well, do more than text. Oh, you could text. I suppose you could swivel. Here's what I like to do. I like to sit and be grateful for the television program Seinfeld. It exists. They shot it. They recorded it. It streams. It's in my head. It's on the TV. God bless the TV show. God bless Larry David. Anyways, what are you grateful for today? Maybe pause, take a moment, think about what you're grateful for. Make a whole list. 2 things, 10 things, 1,000 things. A lot to be grateful for. Anyways, I'm grateful that you're listening. Appreciate you being here. Hope you're doing well. I thought COVID was over. Seems to not be now. It's bothering me. Whatever. Can't control that. Can only control what I can control. And try not to worry about the rest. Anyways, today, special day, exciting day. Good friend of mine. Maybe you've heard of him. Legend, Rich Vos. Love Rich Vos. Known him for a while. We got close over the last year and a half or so. Glad I know him. Hilarious guy. One of the quickest guys. Just a great hang. So funny. If you haven't already, go watch the roast of Rich Vos. It's free on YouTube. Maybe my favorite roast of all time. Absolutely hilarious. Everybody killed. He's got a podcast called My Wife Hates Me, and I think he talks about it on here. He has 6 albums, which seems like a little much, honestly, but no, I'm kidding, of course. They're great. Check them out. And we had a good conversation. It was fun. We talked a little bit about the industry and sobriety and panic attacks, the benefit of panic attacks, how far we've come when our anxiety started. It was a good conversation. Learned a lot. Think you'll get a lot out of it. I hope you do. Hope you enjoy it. And I hope you're doing well and being as safe as possible, taking whatever actions you need to be safe. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing all right. It's a weird time, but still a good time. I got some exciting things going on, and I'm trying to stay right-sized as we stay in my meditation, and try to be connected with people. So I hope you're doing the same. Like I said, I appreciate you being here. And without further ado, oh wait, let me give you some nice quote that I talk about all the time on here, but I'll actually quote it from the wonderful Dalai Lama, who said, "If a problem is fixable, if a situation is such that you can do something about it, then there is no need to worry. If it's not fixable, then there is no help in worrying. There is no benefit whatsoever in worrying." Right, folks? So try not to worry. Don't worry about a thing. It's every little thing is going to be all right. Bob Marley. All right, enjoy this conversation with my friend and lover, the hilarious Rich Vos. Hey, we're here. It's me and Rich Vos. Rich Vos and I. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. A little burnt out from traveling, driving, and living life on life's terms. When we were off for however long with the pandemic in full blast, life was so much easier, so much more relaxing. Less anxiety, less traveling, less resentment, less anger, less everything.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, and it makes you want to like recreate it. I keep going on like trips and being like, I'm going to unplug and go. But what happens to me is like day 4, it doesn't pay to unplug completely, because then your texts and emails start piling up. So it's like you have to like unplug but plug for like an hour a day.
Yeah. And you, unlike me, which is great, I don't know. You take vacations. You go, because I know I'm going to go up to Maine or Boston or whatever, and I'm like, how do people do that? Bobby also takes vacations. He likes his family though. So, I, I mean, Bonnie's so busy. I get so busy. And during the pandemic, you didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
I did tons of yard work. We have a house with an acre of property, but like when I get so jealous, I hear you go, yeah, I'm going up to Maine and we're gonna go out on a boat or whatever. And I'm so hoping it sinks. Nothing personal, just because
My career's sinking, if that does anything for you. But
I
mean, you got to take a when's the last time you went on a family vacation, like the three of you? Do you ever do that?
The last time was never. Never,
Wow.
ever. And my daughter's 14. When my older daughters, my wife and I were divorced. I mean, we had a great relationship. We still do. I saw her the other day. And I would take my kids everywhere back then when they were like everywhere from like 6 to 4, 8 to 6. I took them to Tahoe, Vegas, Florida so many times, the Bahamas. I mean, I was working all these places. I remember working up in Reno, and Nick Griffin was the middle, and he watched my kids when I was on stage.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of middle comics did that for me. Maybe I paid them or not, or just was nice to them. So I used to always go with my daughters, but I don't. Oh, well, Bonnie has taken Raina maybe 3 or 4 times up to Canada to see her family. So that was more of a vacation for them. And I think I went one time. It was Bonnie, myself, and Raina up to Canada.
All right, that's something.
Yeah, but it's still her family. And, I mean, for her, it's great. But it's, I mean, it's away from the business, which is, cool. But not like, they would do stuff. They would go to the lake, this and that. I played golf with her brother-in-law. I mean, but nothing like, let's just go somewhere and go in a cabin or something. See, Bonnie won't do any of that shit. She won't like go camping or do any of that because she grew up on a farm. She said, I grew up without running water. Why would I do that for vacation?
Right. Well, maybe you could go somewhere nice. I mean, go get a nice hotel. Go to the Four Seasons or some shit. She's doing all right, right?
Oh, she's doing great. So she's doing great. I'm doing okay.
Right.
She's doing, it's just so fucking depressing. Like, I mean, she's executive producer on some Netflix show now, and she's creating 2 other shows. We have a show that her and I are creating that, it's moving forward slowly.
Right.
And it can just stop or it could keep going. Obviously, this is
of course.
So, we have the same manager, and then my manager will call. I go, oh, good, something's up. And they'll call me for Bonnie's banking information or something. Hey, do you know the routing number to buy? Shut up. What are you calling me? I'm not her fucking business manager. I'm not her fucking assistant,
It's insane how slow everything moves in this business, and it's so frustrating. And I'm sure other businesses like that. Colin Quinn, I always talk to about stuff, and he always reminds me, he's like, every business is like this. We think we're special, and we're not. But some of it, like, I have a show I've been trying to develop for so long that I forget what it's even about. Like, they'll send notes out of the blue, and I'm like, they're like, what do you think of this? I'm like, I don't even remember the premise of this goddamn show. But maybe that's the best way to get a show to sell, is like you forget, like Shawshank, where he goes, I don't give a shit anymore.
Well, it's so weird how things go inside. We pitched a show years ago. I don't even know who we pitched it to. I'm sure if we dug up the treatment or the pitch, where comics mentor celebrities to become comics. And this was years ago.
Yeah.
How they always have mentoring. And that show's being picked up by someone else somewhere from somebody.
Oh, God.
This is 10 years later that we also, we did the movie Women Aren't Funny. And then we were going to do a sequel, and a network. I don't want to badmouth any networks, but I guess they would be, if you compare them to the country, they would be central of the country. they held us for a year saying, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do, the sequel to Women Aren't Funny. Next thing you know, now we're not doing it. We didn't shop it around for a whole year thinking they're going to do this. The head of the network at the time, he watched our other movie twice on one weekend just to get the feel. Everybody, and next thing, we're not doing it. And in this business with, suits or whatever you want to call them, no keeps their job. Whenever they say no, they have job security. The second they say yes, they could get fired.
Right.
So,
But do you find it like heartening now with YouTube and Patreon and this kind of do-it-yourself thing? But it's been frustrating because with a show you have to produce. It takes a lot of money to get it done. But I like the idea that the industry sort of keeps getting less and less important. I mean, it sucks for them, but it seems good for comedians, at least artists.
Well, since Andrew Schultz and Tim Dillon took over the industry and Joe Rogan, since those three are the gatekeepers now, I think in this business, anything you create on your own, or now you do have more of an option to create things on your own. Every CD I've done, and I'm not trying to make it, I'm just talking about just from my personal, experience. I have 6 CDs and I've done them all myself. So anything that gets played on Sirius, I'm producer and artist.
Right.
We made that movie Women Aren't Funny. So many people said don't make a doc. Everybody's so negative when you're doing something. Don't do it. And the movie did very well. The roast did very well. We did that all ourselves. So no one's, it's very seldom that people are handing you projects and, like Colin had that HBO Max and he put his friends on it. You do things with your close friends, stuff like that is different. But so, yeah, we can create our own opportunities.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And how did the movie come about? I mean, because it's like documentaries I've wanted to make and I keep pussing out and stuff, but that's like inspiring. Does that make you feel better that you're like, hey, we did make a goddamn movie? How many people can say that?
Yeah, well, and it played on Netflix for 2 years. I mean, Netflix wasn't as hot as they are now. It's still on. It was Bonnie's vision, and my money, and it was a female empowered movie.
Maybe you could switch it now, though. I mean, you can come with a vision. She pays. Doesn't she owe you? She could pay for a movie you want to make now.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Not bad.
It's true. And the whole movie is me in an RV waving goodbye. You see the family and the kid out there, what was I saying about the movie? I don't know. It was good. She had the idea, but like also too, I knew a lot of the comics that we got for our movie. I was friends with them. And once I think Artie Lang was at the time the biggest comic. He was on Stern and what everything. And then, I was friends with Chris Rock, and not friends where we call each other, but you know what I mean. And once I got him, then it was easier to get other celebrities. So when we made this doc, anytime you went through an agent or a publicist, it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
Because what kind of money are they making? There's no reason for them, So we got all the talent ourselves. And in the movie, one of the main subjects was Christopher Hitchens, who wrote the article, Women Aren't Funny or whatever, for Vanity Fair.
Right.
A big article. And we talked about him throughout the movie. And as in either production or post-production, he passed away. I'm like, fuck. And then in the middle of the movie, Bonnie, fucking brilliant. She had a newspaper spin, because throughout the movie, we kept trying to get Christopher Hitchens,
right,
to talk about. And then he dies, and we're like, what the fuck? And she came up with newspaper spinning. And Christopher Hitchens dies. He'll do anything to avoid an interview with us.
That's great.
So she made it work because the whole thing could have fell apart.
Right.
You have the brains, the resources, the friends. You can get a camera. You can make whatever you want to make easily. It's just, I'm not saying you, but I think with people, the fear of starting will I finish this? How much money will I think the fear is what keeps everybody from doing anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's scary. I mean, did you ever watch Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about Francis Ford Coppola making Apocalypse Now?
No, it's got
Oh,
no.
it's amazing. It's on like iTunes. I'm sure you can find it, but it's pretty amazing. But it's like all this. His wife was just filming him making the entire movie, and it's like way behind budget. And he funded it himself, and he put his house up for sale to
Wow.
like fund the movie. And he had like everything. And his wife was like so supportive. She's like, I believe in being an artist, and if we have to go back to a smaller house, we'll go to a smaller tohouse. It's like wild, and it took like 3 years, and it was a nightmare, but they got it done, and obviously it was like this brilliant movie. But sometimes you watch those, and you're like, that's the key. You gotta put up all your money, and then for every one of those stories, I'm sure there's 100 stories of guys that fucking spent their life savings or sold their car and made a piece of shit movie that no one ever saw.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying. But you're talented, and so you're not going to start off without pretty much a strong idea, a strong cast, or a strong whatever you have to do to make that movie. You've been in the business, you're successful. You're not going to get, you're not a fucking mailman that's going, or some, electrician going, I'm going to make this doc on electrical on fucking outlets, So I think whatever. Bonnie came. I was talking to Bonnie. Bonnie came in my room last night. That's right. Bonnie and I have separate bedrooms, and that's what keeps us together. But she goes, "Oh, I just watched this documentary on female directors. How there's only like 4% of female directors, that make movies and whatever, and how they're just not in the business." And it was, and she said it was really good. And it was directed by a man.
That's hilarious. That's how a man has to make a movie now. He's got to make it about women.
about women. But the business, look, it is what it is. I don't know what you've been doing comedy. What, 15 years, 16?
21 years now. October 21. Will be 21. I started in 2000 when I was 18.
Wow. Wow.
I'm old. So, you're old, Rich.
Yeah, I started when I was 28. And
Yikes.
I've been doing it 37 years or 30. Well, if I got 35 years sober, I was definitely doing it for at least 2 years before that. So
now, do you take pride in how good you look and how hip and cool you are, how in shape you are? I mean, I know you're an anxiety guy, you're hypochondriac, but you're in your 60s. I mean, you're so spry and healthy and fit. It's pretty unbelievable. I don't know if anyone ever tells you this. We're always shitting on each other. I mean, you're in like unbelievable shape.
Well, I gained like 10 pounds during the pandemic.
No, you're gross now, but I'm saying like before.
But you're not an MRI either. That's all on the outside. I buy jewelry and rings and put a hat backwards, and I'm crying on the inside on a daily basis. I mean, I work, look, obviously I haven't picked up a drug or drink in 35 years. I'm not saying I'm fucking Mr. Sobriety. I'm fucking bouncing off of walls, but I haven't poisoned my body with that. I haven't had red meat in over 30 years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I haven't had regular meat, chicken and turkey, in over 2 years. I work out constantly. I don't do cardio, but I lift, at least 5-6 days a week. I do 1 or 2 body parts, because not just only to stay in shape mentally, when you do something like that, when you work out, you feel like, hey, look, I've accomplished something today. I did something positive, so, and, it's so weird. I was talking to a guy in the audience, and then right in the front row, and I go, how old are you? And he said 65, and he was a year older than me. And I'm going, this guy, I see people my age, or I went to school with, I'm going, what the fuck happened? What the, and I think to myself, I go, when people look at me, I go, do I look like that? Like, as a comic in your head, I bet you still feel like you're 25 because you're in the same business, doing the same thing. You don't see the transformation or the progression that your face makes as you grow older, because it's happening so, sparsely or casually, or, you know what I mean? So you still think you're that fucking 30-year-old person, and you're not, and your body isn't doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. Because you're seeing yourself every day. So that's what's weird when you don't see someone for a while and you see them, you're like, Jesus, you look fat or you're in shape or whatever. They barely even notice. But also I think mentally, like experientially, you don't feel like you're aging. Your conscience isn't aging. Just your
yeah,
body is. And you get wiser, but I still feel like the same person I felt like when I was 9
yeah, that's
and 30, whatever. And I still have emotion. I still react that way. I went to, maybe you can relate to this. I went to Starbucks. I drink Emperor's Clouds tea. It's whatever. It's a green tea. And they ran out of it at one Starbucks. So I started going to the other Starbucks. It's like further away in my neighborhood. And eventually they ran out of it. But I went the other day and I was like, I'll go to that when I walk like 9 blocks. And they were like, we're out. And I almost started crying. I wanted to cry. Like I felt like this is the child in me. Like I didn't get what I wanted. And it felt like, I guess I'll just go. And I literally like pouted. I was like, I'll just go home and make my own fucking tea. And it is, you're like, it's still that like child in you, even if we
well,
age.
well, but it's not only the child, it's the addiction and the obsession
Right.
compulsion because you set out for something and you go, I'm going to get this no matter what it fucking takes.
Right.
If you see say a pair of sneakers you want, you're going to get those, or that's your fucking mission because, alcoholics, addicts put themselves, in, you're going, this is my mission. I have to, it's just like when I was drinking or getting high, I had no money. I go, I got to get high tonight. I'm going to figure out a way. This is my mission, whatever it takes to get the money, not whatever, and then boom, boom, boom. And I'm high. Same thing with, whatever. I want that painting. I'll get that fucking painting. So it's not only obsession compulsion, it's also the instant gratification that you wanted from that fucking tea.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like a hole, a God-sized hole, as we say. As my friend Bill says all the time, which I love. He's like, if you can see it, it won't fix it, which I think is so great because I'm always like, I'll buy another book. That's what I need is a book or a Ted Baker shirt or a fucking chicken parm. And I think that's going to solve my problems, but it's got to be meditation, spirituality, relationships, connecting, I guess. But
I
it's hard. And there's so many things that you want to fix yourself with that are things.
it's I last week we went in and did radio one day. Me and Bobby went in with Norton and Sam, and it was the most fun radio. It was unbelievable. And then I had to leave early because I had to go. I was playing in a golf outing, but I wanted to get. I had my wedding ring, which I could use any ring for a wedding ring. I don't have a special one. And I just had to get it fixed. And I go into the Diamond District across from Sirius just to get the ring fixed. Next thing you know, I walk out with a fucking diamond bracelet. So I get the ring fixed. Now I leave with a, over $2,000 diamond bracelet. And then my wife and people are trashing me going, that's a fucking girl's tennis bracelet. I go, well, I thought it was. So now I drive back into New York like 5 days later and the guy wouldn't return my money. So he returned, and I walked out, with this big fucking ring.
Hilarious. You're like Tom Brady.
He wouldn't return. So, and then I'm in the car going, I don't really like this ring. And I go, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I mean, I like jewelry. I do like it, but it's not fixing anything. It's
Right.
just a fucking Band-Aid on this wounded fucking warrior, I think when I talk to you and I see you and how serene you are, and I know we both have anxiety, you send me meditation stuff and I'm like, fuck. I walk into the room and I see my wife meditating, and I don't do it. I just feel so high strung, and I hear you talk or Bobby or my wife and I'm going, what the fuck? And it's just my fear of starting and failing or not and be able to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's hard. And it took pandemic for me to really start getting into like a daily thing. But the meditation I do, I use this waking up app. I used to use the Calm app. I still have that, but it's 10 minutes a day. So, I mean, I'm like, all right, I can put 10 minutes towards this thing. And it really does help me. But yeah, I always think though, like imagine how much anxiety you'd have if you weren't doing all that exercise. I mean, That's pretty incredible. And you feel like you're more anxious now than you were 30 years ago or 5 years
Oh
ago, or
no. Well, my anxiety, it it started when I was like 21, and I didn't know what was going on, and when my friends go, oh, we'll take you, and we'll talk about this, but it gives me anxiety to talk about anxiety, which is
right,
kind of
right,
weird. So I had distorted. No, I was disconnected. I would look in the mirror and I go, "Oh, who is that?" I don't feel. I felt outside of myself, outside. So my friends go, "He needs vacation." We drove to Florida.
yeah,
Then I got there. I go, "I got to get out of here." And we drove home the next day. I was on some kind of weird. Then I checked into the hospital, and I'm doing a Thorazine shuffle. That's all. They gave you Thorazine. They really weren't up on anxiety back then. They just thought you were fucking nuts,
right,
and they gave you like medicine for being psychotic. So I get out, and eventually it passes. Life, da da da. Get married, have kids. I get anxiety here and there, but I kind of knew. Then when I was 40, when we got divorced, my wife and I are separated. My first wife, I would have my kids in the day, and she would have them at night. So I would have them in the day, then go do gigs, and my life was really revolved around my daughters. Picking them up from school, taking them to school, whatever. Then my ex-wife would pick them up from my house, or I would drop them off. Well, then my kids now were in school full time. I guess they were whatever. They grew, they're in, and I was bouncing off of walls. I was like 40, and I got anxiety really bad. I mean, worse. And I found this therapist. He was the best therapist I ever went to in my life.
Mm.
He was in recovery. He knew therapy. He did work with a psychiatrist that gave me medication, which I weaned myself off of at the time after a couple of years. He was the
Right.
best therapist, and he got me through it because I was bound going, I have to quit comedy. I don't, it's just crazy thinking. And now I get anxiety. It comes and goes when I'm overloaded, maybe.
Right.
But then it was going from anxiety to panic attacks.
Right.
So I don't really, my anxiety now, I get it. Everybody, look at distress. I have a wife, I have 3 kids, older daughters, but, mortgage, fucking house, the business. And it's more from overloading, and it passes. I always know it'll pass.
Right. Right. I think someone described anxiety so well, and I fucking forget how they defined it, but it was like, we don't have enough faith in what we're able to do. Is like, we feel like we won't be able to respond when something happens. I think we raise the level of the stakes of how bad something will be, and we lower the idea of how good we are at responding to things. So the consequences are heightened, and our abilities feel lowered. But
Yeah.
what's helped me so much, I mean, the best thing that ever happened to me was I had a panic attack while doing Conan. I was like literally right before and during,
Oh,
and I was like freaking out, like shaking, and I had this like tunnel vision. My heart was racing, and then it went fine. And my therapist was like, "This is great." He's like, and I also had a full set at the St. Louis Funny Bone for 45 minutes. I was fucking having this horrible panic attack and killing too,
yeah.
because your act is just like it's
Yeah.
up there. It's like a whatever, and like autopilot. And my therapist was like, "That's great." He's like, "Think about that." He's like, "You had your worst nightmare come true, a panic attack on TV, and it was great. Nobody even noticed, and you got through it." So it's like, you have to remember, like, you will survive everything. Like, anxiety is lack of faith that you'll be okay at handling something.
Well, too, I guess that's a great story too, because that happened to me twice. Let me do real. I was doing Keenan, and the show was like probably at 7 p.m. to tape, and let's say they had me there at 1 o'clock. So now I'm in my dressing room for 5 hours, bouncing off of fucking walls, just a fucking wreck. Going, I'm gonna fucking eat it. It's an urban audience. Then they call me to go on. I'm backstage, and there was for 45 minutes. I stood behind the curtain. I go, I'm done. I'm done. And I walked down. I started bombing, and I said to the audience, look, you got in here for free. You want to see Martin Lawrence, spend $100 for free. You get me. So shut your face. And I went to Plan B, and then I had the worst anxiety attack. We were at the Trump roast, and I'm not trying to top your Conan thing. I'm just saying those big pressure situations. Like, I always believe. Okay, luckily on Last Comic, you had to go one-on-one with somebody the first season.
Right.
And no one ever picked me. And I thank God, because I knew I would melt down and piss my pants. Like, in reality-wise in the house, I can handle any of that,
Right.
It's fucking reality. But I always feel like I'm going to walk on stage and this is going to be the one that falls apart. And, even when we were doing Tough Crowd, I did so many episodes. Right before I go on, I'd have to go to the bathroom 3-4 times. I'm taking a piss, and that last piss, I go, okay, I'm good now. I'm normal.
Right.
During my roast, I didn't do it, but during my roast, I mean, this was a big fucking roast. I go, maybe I should buy diapers and just get like fucking, some melt. You get so nervous sometimes, and it's something. This business, like when you do Conan or whatever, these are the rewards for working so hard at what you do.
Right.
And then when you get rewarded, you're going, I'm a mess. I'm going to fail, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's scary, because it is scary, because your like dream is coming true. It doesn't make sense. You're like, this is all I wanted. And when you get there, you're like, fuck. And then the stakes are so high, because it's like you dreamed about being on TV or doing this thing and succeeding in that situation. Yeah. So the stakes of not doing well are huge. You're like, oh my God, this is crazy. I mean, so many people, I think the majority of people, and I don't mean this in a negative way, it's sad or whatever, don't even pursue the thing they wanted to do as a kid. Yeah. So when you get to this point and you're standing there and you're like, oh, this could go bad. It's like you kind of alluded to earlier. My anxiety with doing TV is I'm anxious about being anxious. My fear when I did like Letterman and all these shows is I was worried that I'd have a panic attack and I wouldn't be able to go out, and it's a live show. And then the line producer has to say, hey, Dave, he's not coming out. That was like my big fear, is that I'd be, shaking in the back. But what helped me when I did Letterman, and that's when I was so anxious, but I was like newly sober, which helped. But I kept just saying, okay, right now, I'm just sitting in the green room. That's all I'm doing. There's nothing to be nervous about. I'm just sitting here. And then it was kind of like, all right now I'm just on an elevator. I'm just standing on the elevator. And then I was like, now I'm just standing here. I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing here. And then when I get out there, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm just telling jokes.
Yeah.
And it ended up being great. But it's like a sickening feeling. You're just like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I don't know if you have this. There's like that voice in your head, like, what are you, crazy? You shouldn't be. You can't do this. What are you doing here? Why did you tell them that you could do this? This is crazy.
It's so, yes. Well, of course you have that voice, and that voice is my, parents going, oh, you're not shit, you're worthless, you're whatever. That voice is,
right.
Stuck in your head from childhood, going, why can't you be like your cousins? Why can't you be like your brother? So yeah, the scariest thing I think I did, I thought it was going to be Def Jam, being white, the first white guy on it.
Yeah, black people are scary.
No, I mean, just doing a TV show that no white people have ever done after 5 years.
Of course.
And it was, but when the Trump roast, okay, after the Friars broke up from Comedy Central, they still had their roast at the Hilton. So I had some, things were going well with my career then. So I was on this roast at the Friars, and they're roasting Trump. So, everybody from New York, there was 2,000 people in the audience at the Hilton, 1,500, every club owner, every agent, Opie and Anthony were there. My Bonnie, and this is when I'm dating her, right. Sitting with Opie and Anthony, my father, my mother, anybody that meant anything in New York was in this one. So the first act goes up, this guy, Stewie Stone, an old Friars comic, Joe, he's killed like I've never seen anybody kill on a roast. I mean, he slaughters. And I'm sitting on the dais going, I got to get the fuck out of here. I'm going to end my career right now. I was smoking there, so I walked backstage. I go, I got to leave. I got to sneak. Then Susie Essman went on, destroyed. I go, my career's over. I'm going to bomb so fucking bad. You know, and then luckily, I think Belzer went on, and
Right.
And I was sitting next to Isaac Hayes. There was all these people on the dais. And I'm sitting next to Isaac Hayes, and he's going, "You're going to be fine. Relax, relax." This is fucking Isaac Hayes. So Regis Philbin was the host. It was a month after Rodney Dangerfield died.
Okay.
So I walk up and I go, big hand for Regis. I go, originally they asked Dangerfield to host this, but he said, I'd rather be dead. Right?
That's great.
Pretty much silence.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't kill.
Oh, I thought I was going to say it killed.
No, it didn't kill. And I did another joke. I said, don't fuck with me. I'll bring Belzer back, right? Because he fucking ate it.
Yeah.
And then I started getting them. And out of a 1 to 10 scale, I guess I had a 7, maybe.
Yeah.
But my jokes, 2 or whatever, were quoted in all the papers.
Oh, that's nice.
You know what I mean? It's so weird. And matter of fact, one of the jokes was just quoted in Michael Cohen's book, Trump's Ex-Lawyer.
Yeah.
I said that the reason Trump, and this is 15 or 16 years ago, I go, the reason Trump puts his names on his buildings so the banks know which ones to take back. So
good joke.
Yeah, thank you. So that was how many years ago this guy was having this stuff taken back. But and this isn't. I'm just trying to reiterate what you're saying, that the fear of something you do on a nightly basis is, and you're going, what the fuck? Like Bonnie does TV. It's nothing. She's done 3 Lettermans, Fallon, Colbert, all of them. She just goes out and her jokes are boom, 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 but she used to have a fear of working the clubs. I had no fear of clubs. I'd walk out in any club, but I had a fear of late night, just going, oh, it's too scary. And it's all the anxiety that we put on ourselves.
Yeah. First of all, it's fascinating. I was just talking about this with my buddy Ronan about, it's fascinating how some people have anxiety about some things and not others. Like I've been an anxious guy and a hypochondriac my whole life, but turbulence does nothing for me. Like my wife and I have friends that like they think they're going to die. Genuinely. They're like freaking out. And I've been on a private flight where it's just, I mean, the plane is like doing this and I just it's nothing. It's turbulence is nothing to me. But then if I get a fucking pimple, I'm like, I got to go to a dermatologist. I got AIDS. This is crazy. And it's just interesting what, can make people anxious and whatnot. But for me, I think a lot of it is anxiety of, there's some theory that some guy had that all fears boil down to fear of death and fear of being alone, which my therapist doesn't agree with, but I think it's at least interesting. But I guess with comedy, it's like, oh my God, I fear that I'm going to bomb so hard that everyone's going to be like, he's a fraud, he sucks, fuck him, and no one will ever want to be friends with me again, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't think fear of being alone, because throughout our addiction or whatever, we've been alone. I have no problem, I don't think, of being I think it's fear of failure, fear of, like you say, he's a fraud, he's not worth, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's pretty much, I don't know about fear of being alone, because deep down you always know you have friends somewhere or family.
Right.
Fear of death, I get that. Fear of death and hypochondria is, I've had more fucking EKGs on the road than I thought. I landed in England when we were working in England. I go, I'm having a heart attack, and I went and got an EKG. In in Portland, I had a MRI on my head. I was getting headaches so bad in Portland. Then I got an MRI and they said everything's okay. And I realized 2 days before I hit my head on the wall. I go, maybe that's so.
Now, when did that start for you? When did you start? Did you have that as a kid? Because I had it as like a kid, and it's been my whole life.
No, I think I had it as I was getting older and feeling pains I never felt before. You know, I've always had back pain. I herniated a disc years ago, and I've lived with it on and off. And it only hurts usually if I gain a little weight because your stomach muscles hold your back together.
Right.
So, or if I was walking on a cement floor. So as you get older, you get different pains, and you're thinking in your, I get stomach pains. I have a bad stomach at times. So I've gotten upper endoscopies throughout my fucking hypochondriac career.
Me too.
Upper endoscopy. I get colonoscopies whenever you're supposed to. You get to a certain age, you have a colonoscopy. And, either you have polyps, they take them out. You come back in 3 years, or no polyps, you come back in 5 years. But the stomach problems, they just come out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And it's a nightmare. Back problems, I never, I just do it. I just bought a machine to stretch, and I got an inversion table. So I guess the hypochondria came as I got older and as new diseases came along.
Right.
I remember there was a comic. I don't know if you knew him he died of meningitis. Jerry Red Wilson.
No.
He was on his way to become pretty famous, and he died of meningitis. Then I heard if you have meningitis, there's two kinds of meningitis: spiral, and one kills you and one just gets you sick. He had the one that killed. And if you get meningitis, you can't touch your chin to your chest like that because your spine swells up.
Okay.
So after I heard that, for like fucking weeks, I'm walking around that, and I did a bit where people are looking at me and people are going, I think he thinks he has meningitis, right? And I'm walking around. So that's why I try not to go online and read about diseases or what's new or.
Right.
I got the best AIDS test story. I talk so much. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but
no, it's good.
Back in the day, everybody took AIDS tests, especially after you got sober. I shot dope a couple times.
Yeah.
And so I went for my AIDS test at my doctor's. And whenever I went to my doctor, they would call me and say, everything's okay. Whatever, blood tests, cholesterol, physical, they would call and say, oh, everything's okay. So I took my AIDS test. Then I get a call. They go, this is Dr. So, can you come in tomorrow? And my heart dropped, right? I'm going, what the fuck? They always say everything. He goes, I go, why do you want me to come in? He goes, well, your tooth came in. We want to put your tooth in. It was my dentist. It was my dentist. I just heard doctor.
That's fucking hilarious. That's great. You know who got a false positive AIDS test? Jason Canner, your old pal.
No.
Yeah, and I think it went for like a couple days. They were like, yeah, it came up positive and everything. Yeah, it's insane.
Did he lose his fucking mind?
I think so, yeah. But I think it was like short. But there's still, I think they do give you a speech like this could be a false positive, and that's definitely a possibility because like heterosexual men not using, it's like really unlikely, especially now. Obviously, back then it was a different story. But I'll go ahead.
There's a golfer, John Rahm, that
I know John Rahm,
who tested positive for COVID.
Oh, right.
At the time, he was killing at the tournament.
Yeah, he was up like 10 strokes or something.
He was up 6 strokes going into the final day, which is, unless you have a total fucking meltdown.
Right.
But then 2 weeks later, he won the U.S. Open. But he tested again for the Olympics. He just tested positive for COVID. Now, I thought you can only get it like one time.
Yeah, I thought you had the antibodies for like 9 months, but this disease, I have no idea what the fuck. Some people are deaf. Some people get the sniffles. Some people have like a bad back now. I don't understand the thing at all. It seems insane. But now, how did you do with COVID? Were you freaking out about COVID the whole time? Because everyone asked me, and I was fine. I don't have that kind of
Well,
hypochondria.
I was taking my temperature sometimes 6, 7 times a day. I would take it, then 5 minutes later, take my temperature. I got 4 thermometers up in my room, different thermometers. One that was giving me good readings, so that's the one I started using. And my, you're supposed to be 98.6, and I'm always around 97.5, 97.6, right? Which is okay. Then one day I took my temperature, and it was 99.2, which is 98.6 and 99.2 isn't a big difference.
No.
I started freaking out. I go, I'm dead. Look, it went up points. It went up percentage of, 98.6, 97.2, 6, whatever, less than
1 degree.
1 degree. And I was taking my temperature all the time, but it didn't stop me from going to like Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or the supermarket. I did whatever, I brought my own mic. Now I don't bring my wife's like, bring your mic. And I got vaccinated with Johnson & Johnson, which everybody's going, that stunk. So, of course I get the fucking, it's like work. I don't even work the A clubs anymore. I work the B or C clubs. And now I got to get the B or C vaccination. It's, it's like fucking, what the fuck?
Well, you can get the other one. You can add the other one.
No, I called Dr. Steve and he said they haven't decided whether you can take another vaccination. They're waiting. They're waiting. What is it, the CDC or whatever it is?
I have no idea. CVS. I don't know. I can't keep track.
Whatever. FDA and the Center of Disease Control, right?
Yeah, CDC. Yeah,
they haven't made a final conclusion or an answer whether you should take a vaccine again. Because I would, if they say go take another vaccine, you can do it. Believe me, I'd be on fucking line. If I can get them every month, I would do it. Are you kidding me? If I can, oh shit, I can't play golf today. I got to get a vaccine. I would fucking get vaccinated every day. I'm not some anti-vaxxer or any of that bullshit. I don't give a fuck. I'd rather, and I've talked with, comics that are kind of lean very much to the right. And there's ones that lean very much to the left. I'm pretty much in the middle and one guy goes, well, I'm not taking it. It's not FDA approved. It's not, shut up. Shut the fuck up. You'll fucking go eat in a restaurant where they're fucking sneezing in the back room on your food and fucking, whatever. You'll take fucking Bear aspirin or you'll do this or do that. But all of a sudden this vaccine, shut up.
Right.
Take the fucking vaccine and quit fucking putting everybody else's life at risk.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. But let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this the other day, and I want to see what you feel. Don't you think a lot of it, some of our anxiety, not a lot, maybe a lot of it's the way we grew up or whatever, but we have so much downtime as comedians. Like I'm just sitting around the house. Like the other day, I'm working on this movie, which is exciting and also anxiety inducing. But we had to scout locations. We're all in a van and we're going from one place to the other, and you have to visualize what it's going to look like. And I'm like, well, we could use this. And I just feel like good. I have a job, and where you're focused on this one thing. It's the same with like playing golf. When I golf or play tennis, whatever, I feel good. Especially hanging at the cellar, when we're all hanging out, I feel pretty good because we're bullshitting. It's just as comics, we have hours and fucking hours to like ruminate. I'm like, sometimes I feel better if I worked at Starbucks, I'd be healthier mentally.
Well, yeah, that's true, because an idle mind, and when I had the worst anxiety of my life when I was like 40, like I said, I would go out and buy old furniture and up in my horrible apartment, I would strip it and refurnish it just to keep busy.
Right.
And I would strip it down, sand it, refurnish it. I try to keep as busy as I can. Luckily, I have a house with a lot of property, so I could do something outside. I could work, doing, we built a shed. Bonnie did most of it, but I was the foreman. I told her what to do, even though she read the directions. So I try to keep busy. It's hard for me. Like before I got married, I used to read all the time. I haven't even finished her book that she wrote 6 years ago.
I read it for you.
Huh?
I read it.
I heard it's pretty good. Yeah.
No, it's good.
It's hard to read about your wife, fooling around with other comics. Anyhow, so you're right. We have so much time. So when I go on the road, I know I'm going to work out in the gym. If it's nice and it's warm, I'm going to play golf to get the fuck out of the hotel.
Right.
If worse comes to worse, I'll drive. I see also too, everywhere I used to go, I used to rent a car. It was $200, whatever.
Yeah.
Now car rentals are like $500 for 3 days because all the car companies sold their fleets during the pandemic because they weren't renting them. So, I whatever. I haven't been on the road where I've needed a car yet, but I will be. I'm going to Florida in a couple of weeks. I'm going. I guess we'll do, but whatever. I try to figure out a way. And I'm sure you read a lot. You seem like you read a lot.
Yeah, I read. I'm reading a book right now called The Body Keeps Score, which is about this kind of stuff, about trauma and how, and I think we might have talked about it before. Maybe you read it, Healing Back Pain. Did you ever read that book?
Oh, no, the Stern talked about it.
Yeah. No, it's great, but it's about like how a lot of, pain is like repressed anger and stuff like that. And I'm reading this book called How the Body Keeps Score, and it's about trauma and how like the body is still reacting to trauma that it feels like it's facing. I'm only like 4 pages into this one, so I can't talk too much about it. But yeah, but reading helps, and that's where meditation to me is helpful, because meditation helps and reminds you to like recognize that it's just thoughts, that our thoughts are just thoughts, and it's not reality.
Yeah, I mean, I used to read. I wasn't a big self-help guy. I would start them like The Road Less Traveled or whatever fucking books I had back then. But then when I was reading, I loved nonfiction, the book on Sammy Davis Jr. or J. Edgar Hoover or any mobster, I mean, those were, the Hot House about prison, Leavenworth, so I was reading books that weren't helping me in any possible way, but they were fucking fascinating. I mean, Sammy Davis Jr., what a fucking amazing story this guy had. He was working with the Rat Pack and he wasn't even allowed to stay at the fucking hotel.
Right.
They were working at. He couldn't even stay in the hotel he was working at. And, and Hoover, had dirt on everybody. I mean, he was a computer of fucking dirt. And then when the Kennedys took office and Robert Kennedy was Attorney General, Hoover used to have a direct line to the president. And then, these are like the 4 things I know in life. That's why I'm talking about them right now. That's like, if I go on the podcast right after this, I'm going to talk about, John Douglas, who started profiling for the FBI because I read his books, Mindhunter, Journey into Darkness. And I know John Douglas, one case in Atlanta with the killers, how they caught the guy. And, I'm like a fucking loop. I'm like Groundhog's Day with my knowledge because I only know like 4 or 5 things. But I'll bring them up and they'll go, man, that fucking dude is smart. How did he know all of that? But I only know about 5 things.
I relate to that too. I'm like, I know a little about a lot of things. So anyone that talks about something, I can be like, well, the 72 Corvette, that's when they got rid of the steel bumper. And people are like, whoa. It's like something that one guy told me or whatever. And I know a couple vice presidents or something. And you just throw it out there. And people are like, all right, this guy.
Yeah, I went to the Reich Museum and what's his name's painting Night Watch by Rembrandt. Right.
Yeah.
Was painted in 1642 and, someone cut it and they refurbished it. And I go, and I go, yeah. I mean, I think Rembrandt was the best to me. I mean, Van Gogh stuff, and I'll, pretend I know about art. I know 3 fucking things. I know nothing, And and then I always throw an MC Escher fucking reference in it, who did the drawings that were optical illusions, like the waterfall was going down, but it was going up. And I'll throw a Peter Max or a Andy Warhol fucking thing out real quick. Yeah, fucking Andy in that 15 minutes. But then if they ask more, like even on Opie and Anthony, I said, like, when I play golf, if I don't want to tell them I'm a comic because I don't want to deal with a bunch of fucking,
Right. Of course.
I tell them I was an FBI profiler because I read a couple of books.
It's hilarious.
And then on Opie and Anthony, they were asking me and they busted me on what a fraud I am.
That's like, I've said this before, but I'm like, I memorized, there's to be or not to be. That is the question. I just remembered the next line is, whether 'tis nobler in thy mind to suffer. But if you just do the next line that nobody knows, it makes it seem like you know the whole speech.
That's the Gettysburg Address, right?
No, it's Shakespeare. It's to
See,
be or not to be. That is the question, whether
yeah.
'tis nobler in thy mind to suffer. And it's like Hamlet, I think. I don't even know if it's Hamlet or Macbeth. It's one of the two.
Oh, wait, you know what? Before the Gettysburg Address, the guy was practicing and he said he was doing Shakespeare backstage.
Oh,
Which
wow.
one's the Gettysburg Address? Oh,
Wait,
God.
isn't Gettysburg Address is Lincoln?
Right?
You're like the guy. Like, that's Abraham Lincoln. That's like, there was a guy, Ken Reed, a comic named Ken Reed, who had a great joke in Boston where he said, Elvis, he's like, talks about the Elvis song where Elvis says, someone once said all the world is a stage. And he goes, yeah, it was Shakespeare, you fat hick. He's like, someone once said this. And you're like, yeah, William Shakespeare. It's not like some random asshole said it. It was a funny bit, but
I can't believe everybody that listens to this now is going to bring up that I said Shakespeare was the Gettysburg Address. Every negative troll, every piece of shit because I made one little mistake.
No, these are good. We have good fans here. This is a small, loyal following. It's only like 2,000 people, and they're very loyal, and they're kind. I mean, they're here because they have mental problems. All those troll people, they wouldn't sit through 2 minutes of this. They're like, this is horseshit. He's a cuck, fucking liberal, whatever. So these are good people.
It's so funny, the politics now. Because both sides have been hijacked by extremists.
Completely.
Both sides. And my wife is from Canada, so she's more liberal, and I'm more in the center. But people go, if you're like being in the center, people are madder if you're more in the center than if you pick a side.
Right.
Like, they go, oh, fuck you. If gay people get married, I don't give a shit. I don't get abortion. It's up to her, not up to me. All of that shit. And I just, I don't fall into it because none of them give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck. All these Trump supporters. And look, I'm sure he did some great things. They should have taken his Twitter away. But, he's throughout history has screwed the blue collar worker many times.
Of course.
But they love him. It makes no sense. Biden, I don't think he even knows he's in Washington. He might think he's in Washington State for all I fucking know. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It's either like Target or Walmart, whatever. And they're both don't give a fuck. They're both big corporations. And that's all politics is. It's a business. It's a corporation.
No, it's wild. It's very teamy, and it's funny because I'm like, Manny, who obviously started the Cellar. He had a quote. I never met him, but he had a quote that has been quoted back to me that he said, I was a liberal in the '60s and a conservative in the '90s, and I never changed an opinion. That's how I feel now, where I'm like, I was like a liberal in the '90s. I feel like I'm a moderate now without changing a single opinion. But I hear from people on the left, and I'm like, what?
I know.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. What the fuck?
The far left is killing freedom of speech, killing it, and comics that go after other comics material are the worst.
That's the lowest form of
what
human.
Kind of comic? Look, you can disagree with how a comic behaves or their lifestyle, which is none of your business anyhow. unless it affects you. But once you go after your material, you're really going after your own material, because, once comics aren't allowed to say, this is the last place on earth where the First Amendment really works for you as much as it possibly can, until you become famous and they want to bring you down for whatever. And it makes no sense when a comic, and even if I don't like a comic, whenever a club owner asks me about this comic, or I go, I don't know, take a look at him. I would never take work out of somebody's,
Of course, yeah.
It's not my business. The other day I was in the bagel place, and some lady from my town, or whatever, and this is the best answer I could have came up with. The guy she was sitting with goes, "Do you know Uncle Floyd?" Yeah, yeah. He was a guy that was on TV years ago, and I go, "Yeah, I know him. I don't know him personally. I know him." He said, "Do you think he's funny?" I go, "Do you think he's funny?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, then that's all that matters."
Right.
What? You don't know me. You don't need my dumb opinion.
Right.
But comics, man, just, like they say in fucking recovery, you point the finger, you're pointing three back at yourself. It's such an old hack, but everybody's worried about everybody else's stuff. Shut up.
Yeah, no, it's a epidemic, and not just comedy, but everything, where everyone seems like they should have some control or say over what other people are doing, and nobody seems to just ignore things they don't like anymore. It's very frustrating, but
yeah,
and I have to. It's hard because I'm like, I don't want to go too far into it, because then, like, now you're pulled into it. Like, I was looking at a Twitter thing, which I try to avoid, and somebody was going on this long Twitter thing, and then somebody else tweeted at them going, "Why don't you just shut the fuck up and leave it alone?" But I'm like, well, now you're in it. Now you're doing what they're doing. That's the problem, is you think in your mind, I'm like, maybe I need to tell this person to stop being so crazy on Twitter. But once you do it, you're in that fucking pit as well.
They pull you in. I just looked on Twitter last night or yesterday afternoon. This guy I'm playing golf with, he goes, "You blocked me on Twitter." I go, "Well, you probably said something. Or I read it wrong because I screw up," and I unblocked him. But you could look at how many people you blocked on Twitter, and I blocked 2,198 people on Twitter so far.
You got to show me where to find it, because I've blocked hundreds. Hundreds. I had a guy the other day after a show come up, and he said, "Hey, I'm a comedian. You blocked me on Instagram because I commented that I hate you and you suck, but I was just kidding." And I went, "Oh, okay, that's all right." And then we kind of had this awkward thing where he was like, "So," and I was like, "All right, like, take it easy. Like, that's it. I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to do, but you said you hate me and I suck, so I blocked you. So I appreciate the apology or whatever, but that's the end of it. I'm not like, okay, let's be friends then. Let me unblock you and we'll be friends now. I'm just kind of like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, and take care. That's the end of the conversation."
It's so crazy that these young new or whatever, this one guy comic was going after me and somebody else. They stink. They're funny, whatever. And like that, I would have never, when I started, like, gone after, like, anybody, Bob Nelson, Rob Bartlett, or Richard Jenny. Richard Jenny stink. What, are you kidding me? I've been doing it for a year and a half. Shut up.
Right.
That's what the problem with the fucking internet. It gives people a platform that shouldn't have a platform. Shut the fuck up. Comics are saying, you've been doing it, for fucking 2 weeks. Your opinion means nothing. Shut up. I'll make a call. You won't work anywhere in New York.
I like that we're just coming apart at the end of this mental health podcast. But we gotta live and let live, and Easy does it.
I'm gonna block you after this podcast.
Well, this will never be released, but no, this has been great. I've really enjoyed it. I hope. I think people will get a lot out of it. I think it's been good. I appreciate you doing it.
I'm just a yapping fuck, a lonely yapping fuck that knows 4 things. I'm going to write a bit about that. That was kind of funny, right?
No, it's really funny. If nothing else, you got a bit out of this. I know. I think it's a funny bit. And Shakespeare did the Gettysburg Address.
What a fucking idiot. How dumb am I? Oh, really? He didn't graduate? We kind of knew that when he said the Gettysburg Address. That's when we bailed. Anyhow, listen, thanks for having me.
No, it's great. Plug what's your podcast and everything?
Oh, my podcast is My Wife Hates Me on Laugh Button or whatever. My Wife Hates Me. Actually, we're doing one today. RichVos.com is my website. All my dumb dates and
the roast.
Oh, Voss roast. It's free on
Best.
YouTube.
It's the best. It's my favorite
Thanks.
roast ever. It's so fucking
you.
good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've left my mark in this business. Anyhow, everything is cool. Thanks. I'm gonna go work out now. Come to think of it.
I'm gonna do it too. Let's go work out. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Mindful Metal Jacket is hosted by comedian Joe List. Produced by Joe List. Edited by Matt Kleinschmidt. Executive producers Robert Kelly and Matt Kleinschmidt for the Laugh Button Podcasts.